I was standing on my own front lawn with my hands cuffed behind my back. Red and blue lights flashed across my face. Three police officers surrounded me while my neighbors watched from their porches. And there she was, my wife Brooke, standing on our porch with her phone raised, recording everything and laughing. That house, the one I had been paying the mortgage on for 8 years, suddenly felt like a stranger's property. How did my marriage come to this moment? Everything changed 3 months earlier when Brooke discovered something new. Before we dive into this story, let me know in the comments where you are watching from today. If stories about betrayal and standing up for yourself resonate with you, hit that like button and subscribe to join our community. Now let me take you back to where it all began. I met Brooke when we were both 27 years old. It happened at a small coffee shop in Austin, Texas, one of those places with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. She was sitting alone at a corner table reading a book about marketing strategies. I noticed her laugh first, this bright, contagious sound that made everyone around her smile. She was laughing at something in the book, and when I asked what was so funny, she showed me a ridiculous chart about consumer behavior. We talked for 3 hours that day. I am Augustus, and at 34 years old, I work as a software engineer for a technology company headquartered in Austin. When I met Brooke, I was just starting to establish myself in my career. She worked in marketing for a retail company, and her energy was magnetic. She had this way of making ordinary moments feel exciting. A trip to the grocery store became an adventure. A quiet evening at home turned into a spontaneous dance party in the living room. We dated for a year before I proposed. The wedding was small, just family and close friends in her parents' backyard. I remember looking at her walking down the aisle, thinking I had found my person for life. The first year of marriage felt like an extended honeymoon. We bought a 3-bedroom house in the suburbs, nothing fancy, but it was ours. Every night we cooked dinner together, trying new recipes and failing at most of them. Weekends meant road trips to nearby towns, exploring barbecue joints and antique shops. I genuinely believed I had found the woman I would grow old with. But 3 months before that night on the lawn, something shifted. It started small, almost unnoticeable. Brooke began spending more time on her phone, scrolling through videos and laughing to herself. When I asked what she was watching, she said she had joined an online community dedicated to prank videos. People would share their pranks, rate each other's creativity, and compete for the most views. I did not think much of it at first. Not think much of. Everyone needs a hobby, and Brooke had always enjoyed making people laugh. She started with harmless stuff around the house. One morning, I found all my socks tied together in knots. Another day, she replaced the sugar with salt, and I nearly spit out my coffee. I laughed along even when the jokes were on me. It seemed innocent enough, just a playful wife keeping things interesting. Then came the night she changed the locks. I had been away on a 2-day business trip meetings with a potential client in Houston. The drive home took 4 hours, and I was exhausted when I finally pulled into our driveway around 9 in the evening. I grabbed my bag, walked to the front door, and put my key in the lock. It did not fit. I tried again, thinking maybe I had the wrong key. But no, this was definitely my house key, the same one I had used for years. I knocked on the door. No answer. I called Brooke's phone, straight to voicemail. I knocked again, louder this time. Through the window, I could see the living room lights were on. She was home. I started to worry that something might be wrong. Maybe she could not hear me. Maybe she was hurt. 30 minutes I stood on that porch, alternating between knocking and calling. Finally, the door swung open. Brooke stood there with her phone pointed at my face, laughing so hard she could barely breathe. "Got you," she said between giggles. "Your face was priceless." She had changed the locks as a prank. The whole thing was recorded, and before I could even process what happened, she was already uploading it to her social media account. The video showed me looking confused, frustrated, slightly panicked. Comments started rolling in within minutes. People thought it was hilarious. I did not find it funny. After traveling for 2 days after hours of driving, I had stood outside my own home like a stranger, but I tried to be understanding. I told myself it was just a joke that went too far. That night, I sat Brooke down and explained how the prank made me feel disrespected and unwelcome in my own house. She apologized, said she got carried away, and promised she would not do anything that affected me so directly again. I believed her. 2 weeks passed after the lock incident. Brooke seemed to have dialed back on the pranks, at least the ones involving me. She was still active in her online community, still watching and sharing videos, but I thought we had reached an understanding. I thought wrong. It was a Tuesday afternoon and I was working from my home office. This was not just any workday. I had a video conference scheduled with representatives from a major client, a company that could potentially bring in significant revenue for my team. My manager had specifically asked me to lead the presentation because the client was considering our software for their entire operation. The meeting started at 2 in the afternoon. Everything was going smoothly. I was sharing my screen, walking them through our product features, answering their questions with confidence. About 30 minutes into the call, I heard the smoke detector going off in the kitchen. Then Brooke burst through my office door screaming, "Fire! There is a fire in the kitchen! Get out now!" I panicked. My first instinct was to protect my wife and our home. I jumped up from my chair, mumbled something about an emergency to the confused faces on my screen, and ran toward the kitchen. The smoke detector was still blaring. I grabbed the fire extinguisher from under the sink, heart pounding, ready to fight whatever blaze awaited me. There was nothing. No fire, no smoke. Just Brooke standing by the stove with her phone out, recording my frantic entrance, laughing uncontrollably. "Oh my God, your face," she wheezed. "You should see yourself right now." I stood there holding a fire extinguisher, wearing my nice presentation shirt, realizing that I had just abandoned a career-defining meeting for a joke. When I rushed back to my computer, the call had already ended. I had 15 messages from my manager asking what happened, and an email from the client saying they were concerned about our company's professionalism. That deal fell through. My manager pulled me aside the next day and told me that while he understood emergencies happen, the client had decided to go with a competitor. Months of work gone in 30 seconds because my wife wanted content for her social media page. When I got home that evening, I was angrier than I had ever been in our entire relationship. I found Brooke in the living room editing the video on her laptop. She had already uploaded it with a caption that read, "Husband falls for fake fire prank runs like his life depends on it." "Take it down," I said. My voice was calm but firm. She looked up at me with genuine confusion. "What?" "Why, it already has 8,000 views. People love it." "I do not care how many views it has. That prank cost me a major client. It made me look unprofessional. Take it down." She refused. She actually refused. She said the video was her property, her creative work, and she was not going to delete something that was performing so well, just because I was being sensitive. We argued for hours that night. She eventually went to bed without speaking to me, and the video stayed up. That week, I started paying closer attention to her social media presence. What I found made my stomach turn. Brooke had created an entire channel dedicated to prank videos, and I was the star of almost every single one. There were compilations of me sleeping with my mouth open, videos of me talking in my sleep, clips of me being startled or confused or embarrassed. She had been filming me without my knowledge for months, collecting footage for her growing audience. One video showed me in the bathroom having just stepped out of the shower, wrapped in a towel, reacting to a fake spider she had planted on the floor. Another showed me crying during a sad movie, something I thought was a private moment between us. The comments section was filled with strangers mocking me, laughing at my reactions, calling me names I will not repeat here. I felt violated. My privacy had been turned into entertainment without my consent. The person I trusted most in the world had been exploiting my vulnerability for likes and followers. I asked Brooke if we could see a marriage counselor. She laughed and said I was overreacting. She told me I needed to learn to take a joke that her channel was finally gaining traction and could become a real source of income. When I tried to explain that my feelings mattered more than views, she rolled her eyes and walked away. A few days later, my mother called. Eleanor is not someone who meddles in my life. She respects boundaries and trusts me to handle my own affairs. So when she called specifically to ask if everything was okay in my marriage, I knew something was wrong. One of my friends from church sent me a link to some videos. She said carefully, "Augustus, honey, I am worried about you." I tried to downplay it, told her Brooke was just going through a phase, that we were working things out, but my mother knows me too well. She heard the exhaustion in my voice, the defeat I was trying to hide. "You deserve to be respected in your own home," she said before hanging up. "Remember that." Then Derek called. Derek has been my best friend since college. He is a lawyer now specializing in family law, and he does not sugarcoat anything. I saw some of those videos, he said. Augustus, what Brooke is doing could legally be considered harassment. You have not consented to being filmed in private spaces. You have not consented to having your image used for her commercial purposes. This is not just a marital issue anymore. I told Derek I was not ready to think about legal action against my own wife. I still loved her. I still believed the woman I married was somewhere inside the person she had become. I decided to give her one more chance, one final conversation to make her understand how serious this was. That night, I sat Brooke down at the kitchen table. I spoke from my heart. I told her that I felt humiliated, disrespected, and invisible in our marriage. I told her that her pranks had crossed lines I never thought she would cross. I told her that if things did not change, I did not know how much longer I could stay. For the first time in months, Brooke seemed to really hear me. Her eyes softened. She reached across the table and took my hand. She apologized sincerely, or at least it seemed sincere. She said she had gotten lost in the attention, the validation from strangers online. She promised it would stop. She said she loved me and could not imagine losing me over something so stupid. I wanted to believe her. So I did. 1 month passed after our kitchen table conversation. Brooke had been noticeably quieter about her online activities. She still used her phone, but she was not constantly filming or talking about views and followers. I allowed myself to hope that we had turned a corner, that my wife had finally understood what was at stake. Then came that night. It was a Thursday in late October. My company had called an emergency meeting to address a server issue that was affecting multiple clients. The meeting ran late, much later than anyone anticipated. By the time we resolved the problem and I could finally leave, it was close to 11 at night. I texted Brooke to let her know I was on my way home, but she did not respond. I figured she was already asleep. The drive home took 20 minutes. Our neighborhood was quiet, most houses dark except for the occasional porch light. I pulled into our driveway, grabbed my laptop bag, and walked to the front door. I used my key, the same key I had always used, and pushed the door open. The moment I stepped into the foyer, every light in the house blazed on. I squinted against the sudden brightness, confused and disoriented. Then I saw them. 3 police officers standing in my living room, weapons drawn, pointed directly at me. "Get down on the ground. Now hands behind your back." The commands came fast and loud. My brain could not process what was happening. This was my house. These were my floors, my walls, my furniture. But there were guns aimed at my chest, and officers were screaming at me like I was a criminal. "I live here," I managed to say, my voice cracking. "This is my house. My name is Augustus. I live here." They did not care. One officer rushed forward and forced me to my knees. My face hit the carpet I had picked out with Brooke 3 years ago. Cold metal clicked around my wrists. They hauled me up and dragged me outside onto the lawn I mowed every Sunday morning. The neighborhood had come alive. Porch lights flickered on up and down the street. Doors opened. Faces appeared, some I recognized, most I did not. Someone across the street was recording on their phone. The red and blue lights from the patrol cars painted everything in surreal, nightmarish colors. And then I heard it. Laughter. I looked up at my own front porch, and there was Brooke. She was leaning against the doorframe, phone held up, recording everything. And she was laughing. Not nervous laughter, not uncomfortable laughter. Pure, genuine amusement, like she was watching the funniest movie she had ever seen. "Ma'am, did you call 911 reporting an intruder?" one of the officers asked her. Brooke nodded, still grinning. "Yes, but it is just my husband. It was a prank. I wanted to see his face when he got arrested in his own home." Pretty good, right? The officers were not amused. The one who had cuffed me walked over to Brooke, his expression hard. "Ma'am, filing a false police report is a criminal offense in the state of Texas. You wasted department resources and put your husband through an extremely dangerous situation. Do you understand that we could have used lethal force if we believed he was an armed intruder?" Brooke's smile faltered slightly, but only for a moment. Okay, I am sorry. It was just a joke. Can you uncuff him now? I got some really great footage." The officer shook his head in disbelief, but motioned for his colleague to remove my handcuffs. As the metal released my wrists, I stood slowly, my whole body shaking. Not from cold, not from fear, but from something deeper. Something final. I looked at Brooke still on the porch with her phone, probably already thinking about captions and hashtags. I looked at my neighbors, some sympathetic others clearly entertained by the spectacle. I looked at the officers writing up their report, documenting how my wife had called them, claiming a stranger was breaking into our home. In that moment, standing on my own lawn at nearly midnight, I realized the woman I married was gone. Maybe she had never really existed. The Brooke I fell in love with would never have humiliated me publicly for internet points. She would never have endangered my life for content. She would never have stood there laughing while I was treated like a criminal. The officers left after giving Brooke a stern warning and telling her to expect follow-up contact from the department. She barely seemed to register the seriousness of what they were saying. She was too busy checking her phone, probably looking at how many people had already seen her live stream of my arrest. I walked past her into the house without a word. I went straight to our bedroom and pulled a duffel bag from the closet. Shirts, pants, toiletries, my passport, important documents. I packed methodically, my hands steady despite the storm inside my chest. "What are you doing?" Brooke appeared in the doorway, finally sensing that something was wrong. "It was just a prank, Augustus. Come on, do not be so dramatic." I zipped the bag closed and looked at her for what felt like the last time. "You went too far this time," I said. Then I walked out of the house, got in my car, and drove to the nearest hotel. It was after midnight when I finally sat on the edge of an unfamiliar bed in a sterile room. I pulled out my phone and called Derek. "I need a divorce lawyer," I said when he answered. "And I want to press charges." There was a brief pause on the other end. Then Derek's voice calm and professional. "I will be at the office at 8 tomorrow morning. I will have the paperwork ready." The next morning I met Derek at his firm downtown. He had been awake since 6 preparing documents and researching precedents. He explained that what Brooke had done constituted filing a false police report, a Class B misdemeanor in Texas that could result in up to 180 days in jail and fines up to $2,000. Given the circumstances, the district attorney's office would likely pursue charges. I signed the divorce papers. Irreconcilable differences, the document stated. It felt like an understatement. After meeting with Derek, I drove to the police station and formally filed a complaint against Brooke. The officer who took my statement was the same one who had arrested me the night before. He remembered me clearly and seemed genuinely apologetic for what I had been put through. "I have been doing this job for 15 years, he said. "I have never seen anything like what your wife did. I am glad you are pressing charges. People need to understand that wasting police resources and endangering lives is not a joke." Armed with divorce papers and a case number for the criminal complaint, I drove back to the house. It was early afternoon. Brooke's car was in the driveway. I found her in the living room, looking smaller than I had ever seen her. The bravado from the night before was gone. She looked tired, scared, maybe even remorseful. But it was too late for remorse. "Augustus, please, we need to talk." She started as soon as she saw me. "I deleted the video, all of them. The channel is gone. I am so sorry. I never meant for things to go this far." I did not respond to her apology. Instead, I reached into my jacket and pulled out the envelope Derek had given me. I placed it on the coffee table in front of her. "What is this?" she asked, though something in her eyes told me she already knew. "Divorce papers," I said. "You will also need to find a criminal defense lawyer. The police will be in touch about the false report you filed." Her face went pale. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, Brooke seemed to understand the consequences of her actions. "You cannot be serious," she whispered. "Over a prank. You are going to throw away 6 years over a prank." "You threw it away," I said, "the moment you decided my humiliation was worth more than my dignity. The moment you called armed officers to our home as a joke. You made this choice, Brooke, not me." I did not wait for her response. I collected the rest of my belongings, loaded them into my car, and drove away from the house we had built together. The divorce proceedings took 4 months. Brooke initially tried to contest everything, claiming I was overreacting and that our marriage could be saved with counseling. Her lawyer advised her to take a more cooperative approach after Derek presented evidence of her online activities, including screenshots of the videos she had deleted, but which other users had saved and reposted. The judge ruled in my favor on most counts. I kept the house since I had been the primary contributor to the mortgage payments. Brooke was ordered to pay her share of any joint debts and received none of the equity we had built together. The criminal case proceeded separately. She was charged with filing a false police report and eventually pleaded guilty to avoid a trial. Her sentence included 200 hours of community service, a $2,000 fine, and mandatory counseling for social media addiction. Her prank channel was permanently banned from the platform after hundreds of users reported it for harassment and harmful content. The story of what she did to me had spread beyond her followers, becoming a cautionary tale about the dangers of chasing viral fame. I kept track of these developments from a distance. I did not feel satisfaction exactly. There was no joy in watching someone I once loved face public consequences for her actions. But there was relief. Relief that the system had worked, that her behavior had not gone unpunished, that I had stood up for myself when it would have been easier to stay silent. The first few weeks after leaving were brutal. I stayed in that hotel for 10 days before finding a short-term apartment rental. Every night I lay awake replaying our relationship, searching for signs I had missed, moments when I should have recognized what she was becoming. I blamed myself for being too patient, too forgiving, too willing to believe her promises. My mother came to stay with me during the worst of it. Eleanor did not try to fix anything with words. She just showed up with groceries and cooked the meals I loved as a child. Meatloaf on Monday, chicken pot pie on Wednesday, her famous chocolate cake on Saturday. She sat with me in silence when I needed silence and talked about mundane things when the silence became too heavy. "You made the right choice," she told me one evening over dinner. "Walking away from someone you love takes more courage than staying." Derek recommended a therapist, and I started seeing her twice a week. Her name was Dr. Patricia Hale, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense approach. She helped me understand that what I had experienced was a form of emotional abuse. The public humiliation, the violation of privacy, the dismissal of my feelings, these were not the actions of a loving partner. They were patterns of control and disrespect. "You are not responsible for her choices," Dr. Hale told me during one of our sessions. "But you are responsible for choosing yourself now." And that is exactly what you did. Slowly, I started to rebuild. I returned to running something I had given up during the marriage because Brooke thought it was boring. Every morning at 5:30, I hit the pavement watching the sun rise over Austin while my feet found their rhythm. I joined a book club at the local library and met people who shared my love for science fiction and historical biographies. I took cooking classes on weekends, finally learning to make meals that did not come from a box or a takeout container. My work improved dramatically. Without the constant distraction of drama at home, I could focus on projects and actually deliver results. My manager noticed the change and promoted me to lead a new development team. The raise allowed me to pay off the remaining mortgage faster than planned. Most importantly, I reconnected with friends I had neglected during my marriage. People like Derek, who had always been there but whom I had kept at arm's length because Brooke did not like how much time I spent with the guys. I rebuilt those relationships, showing up for basketball games and birthday dinners and random Tuesday night hangouts that meant more than any viral video ever could. 1 year after the divorce was finalized, I stood on the porch of my house with a cup of coffee in my hand. The lawn was freshly mowed. The garden beds were planted with flowers I had chosen myself. Inside, the rooms were decorated the way I wanted, filled with books and art and comfortable furniture that did not have to photograph well for social media. The house was quiet, but it was not empty. It was peaceful. It was mine. I still think about Brooke sometimes. Not with anger anymore, not even with sadness, really. More like the way you think about a storm that passed through, leaving damage, but also clearing the air. I hope she found whatever she was looking for in those videos, though. I suspect she never will. Validation from strangers is a poor substitute for genuine connection. What I learned from those dark months is simple but profound. Love is not just a feeling. It is a choice made every day, a commitment to treat another person with dignity and respect, even when no one is watching. Especially when no one is watching. Brooke chose her audience over her husband. I chose myself over a marriage that had become a performance. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from someone you love, because staying would mean losing yourself. I almost lost myself in that marriage, but standing on my lawn with handcuffs digging into my wrists, I finally found the courage to leave. And that made all the difference. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you loved because they refused to respect you? How did you find the strength to put yourself first? Drop your story in the comments below. If this video resonated with you, please give it a like and share it with someone who might need to hear this message. Subscribe to the channel if you want more stories about resilience, standing up for yourself, and finding peace after pain. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I wish you the courage to protect your dignity and the wisdom to recognize when a relationship has become something you need to leave behind. Take care of yourselves and remember you deserve to be treated with respect. Always.